Hello, my name is Delia Stevens, and I'm a Course 16 senior at MIT. Today I'm going to be talking about the robust modified Control Lyapunov function, a somewhat misguided attempt to track an optimal trajectory of highly constrained dynamic system using Control Lyapunov functions. The system explored in my project is a special version of a Dubins vehicle, which is a reduced order model of a system that behaves like a car, airplane, underwater glider. The only input is a yaw rate u1, which is constrained by this minimum turn radius. And there's no velocity control on this Dubins car, so it just kind of goes forward and can't stop at any arbitrary points. The goal of a Control Lyapunov function is to find some input u, which is capable of stabilizing the system around some final manifold. In this case, our desired final manifold is a circle of radius r centered at some arbitrary point x1, x2. To make our Lyapunov analysis easier, we defined these UAV-centered coordinates and performed the analysis on these coordinates. Taking our candidate Lyapunov function as a function of our transformed coordinate system, we define a time-varying gain k, which produces the following simulation when started at the point 10, 1, pi minus 0.2. As you can see, it kind of slowly spirals in towards this arbitrary radius, and the control input looks like this on the bottom right. Now that our Control Lyapunov function was functioning, it was desirable to perform a trajectory optimization for the same system. We chose a direct transcription formulation with an initial state constraint and dynamics constraints. Notably, there was no terminal constraint. Instead, we use a cost, as outlined here, to move the system to a goal. And you can see this happening kind of on the left. Notably, this is a bang-off-bang controller, so it's either at the maximum / negative of the maximum or at 0. Alright, so the idea of trajectory tracking is pretty simple. We start from a disturbed state and then use the mCLF to drive the system back to the optimal trajectory. Unfortunately, this was actually quite challenging with our particular system because it was not asymptotically stable to arbitrary points due to the strict control constraints, including the lack of velocity control and the minimum turn radius. So we used a slightly modified version of the Lyapunov function, which assumes that you can, in fact, control those dimensions, and then we just kind of tested it out with the trajectory that you see on the right here. So here are our results from the robust mCLF. You can see that when you don't apply the Control Lyapunov function, and you just apply some reference input, the performance of the system is actually quite bad. But when you do try and stabilize or track the trajectory, you get kind of this oscillatory behavior that evens out in the long-term behavior of the system, and a control input that looks kind of halfway between our bang-off-bang controller and the Control Lyapunov function from slide 4. And indeed, the cost comparison is kind of roughly what we would expect, with the robust mCLF sitting kind of close to the optimal and in between the optimal and Lyapunov. Notably, though, we did stop counting the cost after it hit the trajectory, like the desired final state or the desired final manifold for the first time, which accounts for this like big increase in cost between the optimal and the Lyapunov, because the Lyapunov took about 3 times longer to find that final state. Alright, so the takeaways are the robust mCLF is better than the optimal controller in the presence of disturbances, and relaxing the control constraint greatly improves the performance of the robust mCLF. So if we gave it more control authority or added another control dimension, we would be able to asymptotically track those arbitrary points, and the performance of that system is drastically improved. That's all I have for you today, so thank you very much. It's been a really fun class.